What happened next in that military training hall would be talked about for years. But before I tell you how a 5 feet 2 inches file clerk destroyed a decorated general's career in under 30 seconds, you need to understand something. The most dangerous people are often hiding in plain sight. And Rebecca Torres had been hiding for exactly 4 years, 7 months, and 12 days. General Morrison's voice cut through the morning air with military precision, commanding the attention of 180 assembled soldiers standing in perfect formation. His steel-gray eyes swept across the ranks like a predator selecting prey, finally settling on the administrative section tucked away in the facility's far corner. "You there?" "Yes, you behind Martinez." Rebecca Torres felt her stomach drop as Morrison's finger pointed directly at her like an accusation. At 5 feet 2 inches and barely 115 pounds, she'd been hoping to remain invisible among the towering infantry soldiers surrounding her. Her oversized administrative uniform hung loose on her compact frame, and thick-rimmed glasses made her look more like a librarian than military personnel. "Me, sir." Her voice carried the slightest tremor, barely audible above the facility's ventilation system. "Move it, clerk. We don't have all morning." Morrison's predatory grin widened as he exchanged a knowing look with Master Sergeant Rodriguez. Today's lesson would be about size, differential, and tactical advantage, using the smallest person in the room as a perfect teaching prop. "I need someone to demonstrate proper takedown techniques." Rebecca stepped forward from the formation, her hands nervously adjusting her glasses in a gesture that made several soldiers shake their heads sympathetically. This wasn't going to be a demonstration, it was going to be a massacre. Before we continue, write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe She-Force Tales. Morrison removed his dress jacket with theatrical flair, revealing arms that testified to 3 decades of military conditioning. His biceps strained against his combat shirt as he rolled up his sleeves, each movement calculated for maximum psychological impact. "First rule of engagement," he announced to the gathered troops, beginning to circle Rebecca like a shark. "Always assess your target's capabilities." "What do you see here?" He gestured dismissively at Rebecca, who stood trembling in the center of the training mat. "Administrative personnel. Maybe 110 pounds when fully dressed. 0 combat experience. Perfect example of what happens when you face a superior opponent." The crowd murmured agreement. Rodriguez had already begun preparing medical supplies, whispering to the facility medic, "Better get the trauma kit ready. This won't last long." But something strange occurred as Rebecca assumed her position. Almost without seeming to realize it, her stance subtly shifted. Her feet spread to exactly shoulder width, weight distributing evenly across the balls of her feet. The movement was so natural, so automatic, that most observers missed it entirely. Sergeant Williams, a decorated veteran from the 82nd Airborne, nudged his companion. "Did you catch that footwork?" "Catch what?" his partner asked. "Maybe nothing," Williams muttered, but his eyes remained focused on the small woman in the center of the mat. Morrison continued his lecture, using Rebecca as a living mannequin for his ego. "When approaching a smaller opponent, you utilize your size advantage immediately. Observe as I demonstrate a basic collar control in slow motion." He reached forward with exaggerated slowness, giving his audience time to appreciate his superior technique. Rebecca's eyes tracked his movement with an intensity that seemed misplaced on her nervous face. As his hand approached her collar, she shifted her weight almost imperceptibly, creating an angle that made the grab slightly more challenging. "Notice how she instinctively retreats," Morrison said, completely misinterpreting her movement. Classic fear response from untrained personnel. He completed the grip, his massive hand easily encompassing her uniform collar. From this position, a trained combatant has numerous options available. Rebecca quietly adjusted her digital watch, a sophisticated piece of equipment that seemed oddly advanced for a simple file clerk. The device's biometric sensors, originally developed for special operations health monitoring, tracked her artificially elevated heart rate while she forced her breathing to remain rapid and shallow. Her muscle memory screamed to counter the hold immediately, but she maintained her facade of panic even as Morrison's grip tightened. "Sir," she whispered, playing her role perfectly. You're hurting me." Morrison's grin widened. This was exactly the response he wanted. Fear, submission, proof of his overwhelming superiority. "That's the objective, clerk. Real combat situations don't accommodate your comfort level. He released her collar and stepped back, addressing the crowd again. Now we'll transition beyond simple demonstrations. I'll show you what happens in an actual high-speed encounter. The facility's energy shifted palpably. Phones appeared more openly now, soldiers sensing they were about to witness something significant. Rodriguez moved closer, his own device recording what he anticipated would be a textbook takedown demonstration. Assume ready position. Morrison barked, dropping into a combat stance that showcased years of training. Rebecca mimicked him awkwardly, raising her arms in what appeared to be a clumsy imitation of a fighting position. Someone in the crowd actually laughed out loud. Morrison's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. This demonstration was proceeding perfectly. Now, he announced, I'll initiate with a standard right cross. Smaller opponents typically fail to see it coming due to speed differential. He chambered his fist, telegraphing the punch obviously for educational purposes. The strike would come at reduced speed, fast enough to look impressive but controlled enough for everyone to follow. 3, 2, 1. The punch launched at approximately half speed, still rapid enough to appear professional but slow enough for detailed observation. Rebecca's response was pure instinct disguised as luck. She slipped left, the punch missing her by mere inches. The movement was clean, precise, and absolutely perfect in its execution. For a moment, the facility went completely silent except for the hum of ventilation systems and Morrison's labored breathing. Morrison's face flushed crimson. Lucky evasion, he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Let's see you avoid this sequence. Without warning, he launched a 5-punch combination at full speed. Left jab, right cross, left hook, right uppercut, finishing left cross. The strikes cut through the air with professional precision and genuine intent. Rebecca moved like liquid mercury. The movement revealed something that made Rodriguez's blood run cold. A small tattoo on her neck, previously concealed by her collar. Hebrew text intertwined with paratrooper wings and a distinctive symbol he'd seen only once before, years ago during joint training operations in Tel Aviv. Holy! Rodriguez breathed, his phone nearly slipping from suddenly nerveless fingers. He'd encountered that symbol before, but it couldn't be possible. That unit was legendary. Operators who struck from shadows and vanished without trace. They certainly didn't end up as file clerks in North Carolina. Morrison, frustrated by his failed takedown, transitioned to a clinch, wrapping his arms around Rebecca's torso to utilize his superior size and strength. It was a fatal tactical error. The moment his arms closed around her, Rebecca's entire demeanor changed completely. The trembling stopped. The nervous breathing vanished. Her eyes, previously darting and frightened behind thick glasses, became cold and laser-focused. During the grappling exchange, Rebecca's specialized medical alert bracelet became visible. Military-grade emergency response technology with encrypted medical data storage and satellite emergency beacon capabilities. Equipment originally designed for special operations personnel operating in hostile territories. Rebecca executed a perfect arm drag, spinning behind Morrison faster than most observers could track. Her movements were no longer disguised. This was pure muscle memory, taking complete control. She secured a rear waist lock and, with technique that spoke of thousands of hours of practice, lifted the general completely off his feet. The crowd gasped as 220 pounds of muscle went airborne, controlled by someone who weighed less than half that amount. The slam that followed was controlled but decisive. Morrison hit the mat hard, the impact driving air from his lungs audibly. Before he could recover, Rebecca had transitioned to mount position, her knees pinning his arms with precision that spoke of extensive ground fighting experience. The position was dominant, humiliating, and completely inescapable. "Stop!" Rodriguez shouted, rushing forward. "Everyone stop. I know who she is." But his warning came too late. Morrison, his face purple with rage and embarrassment, tried to buck Rebecca off using brute force. She responded with a lightning-fast transition to an armbar, her legs swinging over his head as she isolated his right arm with surgical precision. The technique was so smooth, so practiced, that several watching soldiers, many with extensive combative training themselves, simply stood with mouths open. "Tap out!" Rodriguez yelled at Morrison. "Sir, You need to tap immediately. Morrison's pride wouldn't allow surrender. He attempted to stack Rebecca, using his strength to power out of the submission hold. She responded by adjusting her angle slightly, applying pressure that sent white-hot pain shooting through his elbow joint. The general's scream echoed through the training facility like a siren. "She's Desert Rose." Rodriguez's voice cracked as he shouted the words. "Israeli Special Forces Shayatet 13. The name hit the room like a thunderbolt. Phones that had been recording switched immediately to Google searches. Desert Rose Israeli Commando brought up results that made hardened soldiers take involuntary steps backward. The legend was real. The ghost was here, and she had just demolished their general in under 45 seconds. Rebecca released the armbar before permanent damage occurred, rolling backward to her feet in one fluid motion. She stood adjusting her glasses with the same nervous gesture from earlier, but now everyone could see it for what it truly was: camouflage. A predator hiding in plain sight. Morrison struggled to his feet, cradling his hyperextended arm. His face cycled through emotions: pain, rage, humiliation, and finally dawning horror as he realized what had transpired. "Impossible," he wheezed, still trying to salvage some dignity. "You're just a clerk. I've reviewed your file. Rebecca Torres, administrative specialist, here 8 months." Rebecca reached up and removed her glasses, revealing eyes that had never needed corrective lenses. When she spoke, her voice had lost all trace of nervousness, replaced by quiet confidence of someone with nothing left to prove. "Actually, General, I've been here 9 months. But you've never bothered examining support staff files closely, have you? Too busy selecting people you perceived as weak." She rolled up her left sleeve, revealing not just the medical bracelet, but a forearm covered in scars. Not random injuries. These were defensive wounds, earned in close-quarters combat where survival was measured in milliseconds. One particular scar ran from wrist to elbow, white against her olive skin. "Lebanon, 2021, she said simply. "Knife fight in a tunnel complex. He had reach advantage, but I had superior training." She rolled the sleeve back down methodically. "You want to understand the difference between us, General? You spent 30 years practicing combat techniques. I've spent 12 years living them." The room fell dead silent, except for ventilation systems and Morrison's labored breathing. 180 soldiers stood frozen, witnessing something that would become Camp Henderson legend. Rodriguez lowered his phone, hands shaking as full implications hit him. This wasn't just any special operator. This was Desert Rose, the woman who had trained elite forces worldwide, who maintained a perfect combat record spanning over 150 engagements, who had vanished from international special operations community 6 years ago without explanation. The main doors burst open with a bang that made everyone jump. Colonel Bradley strode in, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the scene. Morrison on his knees, cradling his arm. Rebecca standing calmly in the mat center, and 180 soldiers looking like they'd witnessed magic. "At ease, everyone," Bradley commanded, though most were too shocked for proper attention anyway. He walked directly to Rebecca, stopping just outside striking distance, a habit developed through years of combat experience. "Miss Torres, or should I say Captain Mizrahi?" Rebecca's eyes flickered with something that might have been pain. "That name belongs to a dead woman, Colonel. I'm just Rebecca now." "The hell you are," Morrison snarled, struggling upright. "This was orchestrated. You brought in a ringer to humiliate me in front of my personnel." Bradley turned to Morrison with a look that could freeze fire. "General Morrison, you humiliated yourself. All we did was provide the opportunity.